Whoops. Always one thing that I forgot. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to Agudath Israel Etz Ahayem Synagogue here in Montgomery, Alabama. I am Rabbi Scott Kramer. So glad you have joined me this evening. Shabbat Shalom. It's nice to be back in Montgomery after a wonderful weekend last week at Ramat Darom. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope you all are having a nice Shabbat, had a nice week. And we will go ahead and get our service started. We are praying out of Siddur Lev Shalem, which is downloadable as a PDF file from our synagogue's website. And we will begin on page 5 with Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi-melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi-melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi-melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi-melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Page 11, Psalm 95. Lechu nerhanena, lechu nerhanena, lechu nerhanena ladonai. Lechu nerhanena, lechu nerhanena, lechu nerhanena ladonai. Nariya, nariya, letzor yishenu, nekad mafana betoda. Nariya, nariya, letzor yishenu, bizmirot nariya lo. Lechu nerhanena, lechu nerhanena, lechu nerhanena ladonai. Lechu nerhanena, lechu nerhanena, lechu nerhanena ladonai. Nariya, nariya, letzor yishenu, nekad mafana betoda. Nariya, nariya, letzor yishenu, bizmirot nariya lo. We join together in the English. Let us go and sing to Adonai. Let us trumpet praise to our protector, filled with thanks. Let us greet God, raising our voice in song. Great is Adonai, a greater sovereign than all other deities. God's hands formed the earth's deep. Mountain crests too are God's work. The sea is God, for God made it. Dry land was fashioned by God's hand. Come, then let us bow and kneel. Let us bend our knees in the presence of Adonai who formed us. Thank you. And we are God's flock, sheep in God's caring hands. If only you would listen today to God's voice and not become hard-hearted like the people at Merivah, like the time at Massah in the desert when your ancestors tried me and tested me, though they had seen what I had wrought. For 40 years I was troubled by that generation, and I said, these are a people whose hearts have gone astray. They do not know my way, so in anger I swore they would not enter my rest. 40 shana kut bedor va'omaram toeh levavim ve'im lo yadid rachai asher nishpati v'yapi im yavaun el menuchati. Page 13. Shiru Ladonai Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai Baruch Shemo, Basru Meyom Le'yom Yeshuato, Sapru Vagoyim Kevodo Bechol Amim Nifliotav, Ki Gadol Adonai, O Mehulal Miyod, No Rahu, Alko Elohim, Lai Lai Lai, Kiko Elohe Ha'amim Elilim, Vadonai Shamayim Asa, Hod ve'adar lefanav, Oz ve'tiferet be'mikdasho, Avu ladonai mishpachot amim, Avu ladonai kavod vos, Avu ladonai ke'evod shemo, Seu mincha, Uvahu lechatzrod of lai 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 shtachavu ladonai behadrat kodesh chilum mipanav kol haaretz imrum vagoyim Adonai malach avtikon tevel balatim od yadin amim b'mei sharim yismechu hashamayim v'tagil haaretz ayiram mayamu melo yalo sadai v'chol asher bo lai 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 az yiranenu kol hatziyar lifnei Adonai kiva lishpot haaretz ishpot tevel betzedek v'yamim be'emunato yalai la lai la yai la la lai lai yai lai 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 la lai la lai yai lai 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 yai lai 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 yai lai lai lai. We continue with Psalm 97, page 15. David, would you lead us, please?
Adonai reigns, let the earth be glad, the many distant lands rejoice.
Clouds and thick darkness surround the divine, righteousness and justice secure God's throne. Fire goes before God, consuming besiegers round about.
Flashes of lightning illumine the land, the earth watches and trembles. Mountains melt like wax at the approach of Adonai, at the approach of the master of all the earth.
The heavens tell of God's righteousness, and all the nations see God's glory.
Worshippers of idols be shamed for praising false gods. All that is deemed supreme bow before God.
Zion hears of it and rejoices. The cities of Judah exult as you, Adonai, pass judgment.
You, Adonai, are above all that is earthly, exalted over all that is worshipped as divine.
Those who love Adonai hate evil. God protects the lives of the faithful, saving them from the hands of the sinful.
Light is sung for the righteous and joy for the upright. Rejoice in Adonai, you righteous people, and thank God you pronounce the divine holy name.
Or Zarula Tzadik will Israel have simcha, simchu tzadikim badunai, v'hodu l'secher kadisho. Thank you very much, David. Page 17, Psalm 98. Mizmor shiru ladonai shir chadash, ki niflot asa hoshia lo yimino. Ozaro wakod shoadia Adonai Yeshuato le'ena goyim gilad tzidkato zachar chasta ve'emunato leveit Yisrael ra'u cholav se'aretz et Yeshuat Eloheinu ariu l'Adonai kol haaretz Pitzchum veranenu v'zameru zamru l'Adonai bechinor v'kol zimera b'chatzot tzrot v'kol shofar ariu lifnei melech Adonai yiramayam umloho tevel v'yoshveva neharod yimchau chaf Yachad arim yiranenu lifnei Adonai kivo lishbot haaretz yishbot tevel betzedek ve'yamim be'mesharim yalai lalai 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 Yalai la 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 la. Yalai la 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 la. Yalai la 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 la. Yalai la 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 la. Yalai la 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 la. Yalai la 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 la. We continue page 19, Psalm 99. Tina, would you lead us, please?
Adonai reigns, nations tremble. The one enthroned amidst the cherubim makes the world quake.
Adonai is great in Zion above all nations. They shall acknowledge your name, saying, Great, all-inspiring, Holy One.
A sovereign strength lies in the love of justice, and you forge the paths of truth, judging Jacob righteously and justly.
Exalt Adonai our God. Bow down before God, the Holy One.
Moses and Aaron among God's priests, and Samuel among those who called upon the divine name, called to you, and you answered them. You spoke to them from amidst the cloud. They kept your covenant and the law you gave them. You answered them, Adonai our God. You were forgiving God to them, even as you punished them for their transgression.
Exalt Adonai our God. Bow down at God's holy mountain, for Adonai our God is holy. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu lahar kadosho ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. We rise, page 21, Psalm 29. Mizmor leDavid, havul Adonai ben Elim, havul Adonai, kavod va'oz, lai, havul Adonai, kevod shemo, ishtachavul Adonai behadrat kodesh, kol Adonai alamayim el hakavod hirim. Adonai, Amayim Rabim, Kol Adonai, Bakoach, Lai, Kol Adonai, Behadar, Kol Adonai, Shover Arazim, Vaishaber Adonai, Et Alzei Alvanon, Vayarkidem Kemo Egel, Levanon, Vesirion, Kemo ven re'emim, lai, Kol Adonai, Vaishaber Adonai, Alzei Alvanon, Vayarkidem Kemo Egel, Levanon, Vesirion, Kemo ven re'emim, lai, Kol Adonai, Chotzav lahavotesh, Kol Adonai, Yachil midbar, Yachil Adonai, midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai, Yecholel ayalot, Vayechesof, Ye'arod, Uveichalo, Kulo omer kavod, lai, Adonai lama bulya, Shava yeshev, Adonai melech leolam, Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yavarech et amo v'shalom. Yai, lai, Yai, lai, Yai, lai, Yai, lai. That's what happens when you take your eye off the page. Please be seated, page 23. Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmianu elam yuchad, Adonai echad, Ushamo echad, L'shem utiferet veliti lalecha, Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nikabela, Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki mekor haberacha merosh mikedem nesucha, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה מקדש מלך עיר מלוכה קומי צאי מתוך ההפכה רב לך שבט בימי קבחה והוא יחמו עלייך חמלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה התנערי מעפר קומי לבשי בגדי תפארתך עמי היד בן ישי בית הלחמי קרבה נפשי גאלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה התעוררי Kiva ore kumi ori, uri, shir daberi, kivod Adonai, alayich nigla, lecha dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela, lo tevoshi, ולא תקמי מה תשתוכחי ומה תמי בך יחסו אני איימי ונבנתה עיר אל תילם לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה והיו למשיסה שהו אסייך ורחקו כל מבלייך יסיס עלייך אלוהייך כמחס חתנה כלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה ימין ושמאל תפרוצי ואת אדוני תריצי היד איש בן פרצי ונשמחה ונגילה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. You may be seated. We continue with Psalm 92 on page 27. I'm going to have David and Tina lead us responsibly in this. Something different.
It is good to thank you, Adonai, and sing to your name, Most High, to proclaim your love at daybreak, your faithfulness each night.
Finger the lute, pluck the harp, let the sound of the lyre rise up.
You gladden me with your deeds, Adonai, and I shall sing of your handiwork.
How wonderful are your works, Adonai, how subtle your designs.
The arrogant do not understand, the fool does not comprehend this. The wicked flourish like grass, and every evildoer blossoms, only he is destroyed forever.
But you, Adonai, are exalted for all time.
Surely your enemies, Adonai, surely your enemies will perish. All who commit evil will be scattered.
As a wild bull raises up its horn, you raised my head high, anointed it with fresh oil.
As my enemies gather against me, my gaze remains steady, for my ears listen and hear.
The righteous flourish like the date palm, thrive like a cedar in Lebanon, planted in the house of Adonai. They flourish in our God's courtyards.
In old age they remain faithful, stood refreshed and vulnerable, proclaiming Adonai is upright, my rock in whom there is no flaw.
Tzadik tamar yifrach ki erez balvanon yiske shetulim beveit Adonai bechatzrot Eloheinu yavrichu od yenuvun beseva deshenim verananim yeyu להגיד כי ישר אדוני צורי ולא עוולתו בו. Page 29. Adonai is sovereign, robed in splendor, girded in strength. The earth stands firm, not to be dislodged. From earliest time you are enthroned, you are eternal.
The rivers rise up, Adonai. The rivers raise up their roar. The rivers raise up their waves. Above the roar of the vast sea and the majestic breakers of the ocean, Adonai stands supreme in the heavens.
In your house, beautiful in its holiness, your testimonies endure, Adonai, for all time. Shabbat Shalom. It is so great to be back in Montgomery. It seems like we've had a whirlwind middle of January, beginning of February. We had 2 youth groups back to back in January, one from USY, United Synagogue Youth, and then the very next week we had a group of teens from New York, from the name escapes me at the moment. Anyway, doesn't matter. And it was really, really wonderful. And then last week, I got to lead Kabbalat Shabbat for 90 people that came to Ramah Darom. It was so much fun to be at Ramah and be able to sing with all of these youth and with the board members of Ramah and with our congregants of Agudath Israel Etz Ahayem and the congregations of Chattanooga and Greenville. Somehow I keep calling them Greensboro, but it's Greenville, South Carolina. And it was just a magical Shabbat, but I missed all of you, and I'm sorry we weren't able to have services in person or online, but here we are. So every once in a while I talk about my visitations to the Jewish inmates at Maxwell Federal Prison Camp, where I have been going and meeting with inmates since 2008. I visit once a week on Tuesday mornings, used to be Thursday, for about an hour and a half. One week, a few years ago, one of the inmates challenged me on what the topic of conversation should be. I was more inclined to teach them about Judaism or Torah, but on this particular week, one of them spoke up and, holding a book in his hand, said that they needed to talk about their prison situation. We usually have great conversations and arguing fests around Judaism and how to make it relevant to their lives as a reservoir for strength to help them with their difficult sentences. But that day was different for some unknown reason, which became known. I was curious about the book. This gentleman was waving at me and asked him what he was reading. The book was called Orange is the New Black, written by Piper Kerman. Now, don't get this confused with the Netflix series or whatever it is now of Orange is the New Black. That is completely made up and does not follow the book. That is just for entertainment, okay? So if you see the series, Orange is the New Black, it's nothing connected to the real book. So what is Orange is the New Black? It is the story of a young woman in her 20s who graduates from college with no goal in mind for life and begins a relationship with an older woman who is a major drug smuggler. Wanting some excitement in her life, she tags along with her girlfriend during one of her worldwide excursions and agrees to launder some of the drug money for her. Not to make money, but to have some excitement and adventure in her life. The relationship ends and years go by, and then one day, federal agents come looking for her as she has been indicted for money laundering and conspiracy in this drug racket. Her girlfriend turned her in to get a reduced sentence. Piper is engaged to be married at this point, but has to put all that on hold as she is sentenced to 15 months in prison. She is sent to Danbury prison camp for women in Connecticut, the lowest security rung of the Bureau of Prisons detention centers. The rest of the book is about her experience in prison and other women who have been sentenced for white-collar crimes or drug offenses. She describes her experience with these mostly African-American and Spanish-American women who have mostly been sentenced for drug offenses, nonviolent crimes caught up in their boyfriend's or husband's drug business. 80% of them have small children who they have left behind. And then to wind up in a place where the prison staff, from the warden on down to the guards, and those who supervise the work details, being not only mean and cruel, but incompetent and indifferent. Piper came to this revelation as she was serving her sentence. She came to an understanding of how her criminal offense actually resulted in some of these women's path to prison. I want to share with you a couple of quotes from the book that I found very poignant. Yet for the first time, I really understood how my choices made me complicit in their suffering. I was the accomplice to their addiction. A lengthy term of community service working with addicts on the outside would probably have driven the same truth home and been a heck of a lot more productive for the community. But our current criminal justice system has no provision for restorative justice, in which an offender confronts the damage they have done and tries to make it right to the people they have harmed. Instead, our system of corrections is about arm's length revenge and retribution all day and all night. Then its overseers wonder why people leave prison more broken than when they went in. This leaves one with a less than comfortable feeling that our tax dollars are actually protecting us from bad people. These women are not bad people. They have just made bad choices. In a Q&A with a reporter after the book came out, Piper said, "Every human being makes mistakes and does things they're not proud of. They can be everyday or they can be catastrophic. And the unfortunate truth of being human is that we all have moments of indifference to other people's suffering." I'm going to say that again. We all have moments of indifference to other people's suffering. To me, that's the central thing that allows crime to happen. Indifference to other people's suffering. If you're stealing from someone, if you're selling them a product that you know will hurt them, the thing that allows a person to do that is that somehow convince themselves that that's not relevant to them. I now realize what the inmates were telling me. I had heard stories about the warden, assistant warden, guards, supposed teachers in the drug rehabilitation program, physicians, work supervisors, And I chose to just not believe the stories of incompetence and stupidity and just flat not caring. One inmate was in distress over his mother dying and not being able to get a furlough to see her one last time. The reason? The warden did not want to be bothered with the paperwork. Some weeks before this conversation with this inmate, a really nice, respectful, religious, Orthodox Jewish man was scheduled to be released on a Wednesday, and his wife was going to meet him in Atlanta, and they were to drive home together to Florida. One of the staff misfiled some of the paperwork, and that delayed his release by a couple of days. He missed his opportunity to reunite with his family at great personal cost. The reason? The staff member did not want to refile the paperwork as being too much work. The inmates have 1 day a week to take visitors, and sometimes family members fly in with their wives and children and parents from great distances they might only make once a year. A few months before this, one of these once a year visits was canceled because the camp was on a lockdown for a drill that was not even necessary. The reason? There were a group of Bureau of Prison officials coming to certify the camp and check on its procedures and make sure the staff was doing their jobs. That was more important than inmates getting rare time with their families that came for once a year reunion. And guess what? It really was a sham. The staff was and is not doing their jobs. It was only CYA. I could go on with this, but after hearing from this inmate and after reading this book, do I have to? No. I realized not only how totally incompetent is our penal system, but even more striking is the indifference to the inmate's suffering. And then I realized how sometimes I have exhibited this indifference myself. I cannot control how the prison staff acts, but I can control how I act. I guess I needed that information to remind myself why I go to this prison every week. And it reminds me of the suffering that each of us has in life. I need to be more cognizant of this and not turn my back for ridiculous reasons like these prison officials. So I invite you to read this incredible book and let me know if it influences your own behavior to others. Shabbat Shalom. Don't watch the series. Read the book. Please don't watch the series. We continue with Ma'ariv. I ask everyone to please rise. Page 39a for the Baruch Hu, the call to worship. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai Varach Le'olam Vaed. You may be seated. Baruch et Adonai, our God, sovereign of time and space, whose word brings the evening dusk, whose wisdom opens the gates of dawn, whose understanding changes the day's division, whose will sets the succession of seasons and arranges the stars in their places in the sky, who creates day and night, who rolls light before darkness and darkness from light, who makes day pass into night, who distinguishes day from night. Adonai Tzevaot is your name, living and ever-present God. May your rule be with us forever and ever. Baruch atah Adonai, who brings each evening's dusk. Umahavir yom umevi laila mavdil ben yom uvein laila Adonai tzavot shemo El chai v'kayam tamidim lo cholein olam voed baruch atah Adonai Hamari v'aravim, page 40. Ahavat olam beit Yisrael amchavta Torah u'mitzvot u'chukim u'mishpatim otanu limadta Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shachvenu v'kumenu nesiach bechukecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha uv'mitzvotecha le'olam v'oed ki hem chayenu v'orech yameinu uvahem nege yomam v'layla v'atachata mimenu la'olamim baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol miodecha v'hayu hadvarim ho'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinanatam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uv'shachbecha v'kumecha ukshartam liot al yadecha v'hayu l'tatafot ben hinecha uchtabdam nam zuzot beitecha uv'isharecha v'hayim shamo tishmo metzatar shirnochi. Et Shemaim v'layim atar v'dama lo titen et v'ileh v'lavchem v'yan nafshechem v'shaktam otam liot ayedechem v'ayu l'totafot b'neinechem v'limatem otam shach b'chav k'mecha v'tavtam amzot b'techa v'yishurechem. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lebor daber el bnei Yisrael v'yamarta lehem v'yasu lehem tzitzit al kanfei v'gnehem ledoratam v'natnu al tzitzit hakana petil techelet v'haya lachem letzitzit oritem oto v'uzchartem et kol mitzvot Adonai v'asitem notam V'lo tatu racharei levavchem v'yacharei nechem asher tem zonim achareihem leman dizgaru v'asitem net kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim leloechem ani Adonai Eloechem asher hotzeiti etachem be'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'elohim ani Adonai Eloechem Adonai Elohechem Emet, page 43a. This is our enduring affirmation binding on us that Adonai is our God and there is none other, and we, Israel, are God's people. God is our sovereign, redeeming us from earthly rulers, delivering us from the hand of all tyrants, bringing judgment upon our oppressors, and just retribution upon all our mortal enemies, performing wonders beyond understanding and marvels beyond all reckoning. God places us among the living, not allowing our steps to falter, and leads us past the false altars of our enemies, exalting us above all those who hate us. Adonai avenged us with miracles before Pharaoh, offered signs and wonders in the land of Egypt. God brought Israel from its midst to lasting freedom and led them through the divided waters of the Sea of Reeds. As their pursuers and enemies drowned in the depths, God's children beheld the power of the divine. They praised and acknowledged God's name. Page 44. ומלכותו ברצון קיבליה משה ומרים ובני ישראל לכנו שירה בשמחה רבה ויאמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נדור בקודש נורא תהילות אוסף אלה מלכותך ובניך בוקיים לפני משה זה לי אנו ויאמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגלד מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. Page 45. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום. ושמוצאתנו ואין לחיים ושלום יתה ויד עולם ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך ברוך אתה אדוני הפורץ סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים. Page 46. We rise. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם אותי לעולם אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם וביום השביעי שבת וינפש שבת וינפש שבת וינפש ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. We rise for the silent Amidah, pages 47 through 52. Remain standing as the ark is opened for Aleinu, page 56. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol l'tek gdula l'yotzeh bereshit shalo asanu k'goyeh ha'aretza v'lo samanu k'mishmachot ha'adama shalo sam chelkeinu kahem v'gor aleinu kechol hamunam v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shehu Notei Shamayim V'Yosed Haaretz U'Moshe Yikara B'Shamayim Imav V'Shchinat Zo B'Gavei Meromim Hu Eloheinu Einod Emet Malkeinu Elazulato Kavkatu B'Torato V'yadata Hayom V'ashivota Elevavecha Ki Adonai Hu Elohim B'shamayim Mimal V'yal ha'aretz mitachat Einod Al Kedet B'Adonai L'Ramei B'Tiverzecha V'Galuli Min Haaretz Ha'im K'Rabbi Chaydim Gagadu b'doratech Adonai loch le'lam voed v'nehemar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol ha'aretz bayom mahu yeh Adonai echad u'shamo echad. You may be seated. This week we will observe yard sites for Isaac E. Cohen, Ida Feinberg, Leah Weinstock, Leah Beaton, Mary Turner, Rabbi E. Blockschlager, Herman Levine, Isidore Werfel, Sam Feldman, Albert Siegel, Isaac H. Cohen, and Lillian Thresher. Those observing yard site and those who mourn, please rise and join me, page 58, for the Kaddish tome, the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabba b'yomad divrach yirutei v'yamlech malchutei b'chayechon v'yamechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael ba'agalav izman kari v'yimaru amen yehi shmei rabba mevarach le'olam umel maya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitchomam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalosh Shmei Kudusha b'richu Leilamin kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata da'amiran b'yoma v'yimaru amen Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimaru amen Oseh shalom b'mamav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael V'imaru, amen. You may be seated. Thank you all for joining me, for joining us this evening. Shabbat shalom to everyone. It was such a fun Shabbat last week. Next year, you ought to all put on your calendar to join us in the first, I think it probably is the first weekend in February every year for the Southern Shabbat Shmooze. I mean, talk to Tina. Did you enjoy it? Absolutely, she says. So it was fun. It was fun driving up all together, even though we were kind of crunched in that back seat. Front seat was great. And apparently I didn't call shotgun soon enough. So anyway, but it was a lot of fun. It was so much fun. So services will continue tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. And we will meet on Zoom for Havdalah tomorrow at 7 p.m. The religious school will meet this Sunday at 9:30 a.m. And it looks like Sisterhood is having a book club at the Wharf at East Chase at 1 p.m. And there's something going on Sunday evening, so you might want to tune in to the Super Bowl. Next week, if I'm not mistaken, we have Sisterhood Shabbat, which is not in our program, unfortunately. Yes, next week is Sisterhood Shabbat, and that should be a lot of fun, and we're having a dinner afterwards, which is always great. I understand that Linda Smith is making sliders, which is barbecue brisket on these little rolls. Anyway, I just remember last time I must have eaten 10 of them. I don't think I'll do that next week, but they were really, really good. So we look forward to that. So we will go ahead and conclude our service, page 211. Adon olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra li'ed nasa v'chefso kol azai melech shemo nikra v'yacharei kichlot hakol levado yimloch nora V'hu haya, v'hu oveh, v'hu yiyeh b'tifara, v'hu echad v'yein sheni, l'ham shelo le'achbira, beli reshit, beli tachlit, v'lo ha'oz v'hamisra, Vehu eli v'chai go'ali v'tzor chevli b'yetzara vehu nisi umanosli minat kosi b'yom mekra b'yado avkid ruchi b'yet ishan v'yaira v'imruchi giviyati Adonai li v'lo ira Adonai li v'lo ira. And there the hearts come. I love that on Facebook Live.